Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to NPU Live. I'm Keri Rodriguez.
Happy Monday. I'm Tim Langen.
That's right. It is Monday, June 8th, 2020. So glad to have you with us. And it's a beautiful day in Boston.
Good. Mid-70s, nice and sunny all day.
And lots of beautiful trouble across the nation this weekend. You know, lots of folks out in the streets. I think some folks thought this was going to be like a one-day protest and then everything was going to go back to normal. Not so.
Nope.
Beautiful things, absolutely beautiful things happening all over the nation. People coming out, some big news coming out of Minneapolis.
That's right.
A couple of things actually coming out of Minnesota. St. Paul, you know, if we're going to start off with COVID-19 news.
Yes.
The chair of their school board died of COVID-19.
Passed away 31
years old. Stunning. Absolutely stunning that happened.
Yeah, very sad.
Very sad. From the Hmong Nation, a beautiful representative of that community fighting for equity. She was extraordinary, lost her life at the age of 31. A lot of people very stunned. This virus is still very active, folks. It is not over.
No.
You know, regardless of how our elected officials decide to reopen the economy. Very interesting perspectives on that, but
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, some folks who are going places are the people in Minneapolis. Want to shout out to Kulia Pringle, the Minnesota Parents Union, all of our friends, the Wayfinder Foundation as well. Really, Nakima Levy-Armstrong doing extraordinary work. Love to see this beautiful trouble they're getting into in Minnesota. We're actually, it's extraordinary for us to have a front row seat to see their beautiful work and lift it up, make sure their voices are heard, you know, and just watching, you know, people follow their leadership. Extraordinary developments out of Minnesota in Minneapolis. The city council voting to defund the police, to disband the police. Just, you know, incredible to see what can happen when folks are in motion and holding people accountable. What do you think, Tim? I
think that's great. I think there's unfortunately, there's a bright side to everyone being home, everyone having the time to go out and protest. Hopefully that'll provide more momentum for this as well. It is not slowing down. If anything, it's growing. Also over the weekend, I love the quote I read today on CNN that multiple statues honoring slaveholders tripped and fell into the water.
Yes, across the country, this happening. So in Minneapolis, not only did we have the disbanding of the police, the banning of the use of chokeholds, charges upgraded against Officer Chauvin and his accomplices late last week. If you did not hear that news, Dallas adopting a duty to intervene rule that requires officers to stop other cops who are engaging in inappropriate use of force. In New Jersey, the Attorney General there saying the state will update its use of force guidelines for the first time in 2 decades. In Maryland, a bipartisan work group of state lawmakers announcing a police reform work group. In LA, the city council introducing a motion to reduce LAPD's $1.8 billion operating budget. The MBTA in Boston agreeing to stop using public buses to transport police officers to protest. Also, the city council in Boston having a conversation with Mayor Marty Walsh around reallocating funding sources for the Boston police to other departments.
Well, we were talking about this weekend, driving around. What do you need tanks for?
Yeah, it's funny, again, on this broadcast several weeks ago, talking about, you know, as the protests were first starting, very strange to see how quickly police officers can show up in military grade vehicles and whatnot. Like, we're always hearing, and we're going to talk to Yahaira Lopez from Randolph, Massachusetts, the founder of Autism Sprinter. She's got to take on budgets and budget cuts. We're going to be talking about that. But Tim, just going to put it out there. Like, we are always in conversation about these topics because we are so close to the pain here. How do you have tank money? You got tank money, you don't have teacher money.
That's right.
You don't have social emotional supports for our not just our children, but our people in communities, that there's been no restorative justice. Constantly the victims of generational institutional racism, something we've been singing since the birth of this organization. But you got tank money.
You get tank money, but you can't get translators in the classrooms because you just laid off all these teachers.
Yeah, you don't have support so that you can fully implement IEPs, but you got tank money, you got AK-47 money, and you got it at the ready. They've got these brand new tanks. Like, did you know the Boston police, the Minneapolis police, the Los Angeles Police Department, like they got full on, like they are ready,
like an army,
like a military.
And if you're looking at people like that, I would like to say, why do you need that army? Is that how you see your citizens? Is that how you see the people, that you need to have an army at the ready to fight them?
They may march in the street against you, which is like one of our foundational rights here in the United States of America. Holy crap. And to hear about the amount of money, the ACLU here in Massachusetts doing just a quick and dirty analysis, and quick and dirty it was, on the Boston Police Department, $414 million their budget, so that they can have tank money. They got tank money. It's incredible. And we're always hearing, they always kind of pull on the heartstrings, first responders, they need to have more. There's always constant money available to increase their budget. When we think about first responders, do we want people with tanks being the first to respond to some of these situations in our communities? No, we don't.
No.
It's not necessary. You don't need to show up with a tank.
Tanks are an extreme last resort, if a resort at all.
Well,
on the beaches of Normandy.
It is, that's right. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it is fascinating to think about, the conversations that are happening right now. Do you want your first responder to be a cop with a gun? Or do you want your first responder to be somebody who is trained to de-escalate situations? Right. It's blowing my mind right now that we are, right now in the midst of these conversations. We better take advantage of it before everybody's attention goes elsewhere. The cicadas will come out, and then suddenly we won't be talking about marching in the street. People will be talking about murder hornets or whatnot, whatever the new story. And I am just so impressed by the fact that this has stayed on the front page. Let me continue though.
Go on.
Police brutality captured on cameras leading to near immediate suspension and firings of officers in several cities, including Buffalo and Fort Lauderdale. In Buffalo, did you see what happened there? A man protesting in one of these beautiful actions.
Two cops tossed him.
Tossed
a 74-year-old elderly man.
Yeah, this Catholic social justice, he's I guess, a perennial fighter for peace, and not even a fighter, he's just kind of a he's 74 years old.
Yeah.
And you get
captured on video. Yet the police force is actually standing behind him. I think 50 plus cops have offered to resign.
Do it. Resign.
Resign twice.
See ya. Okay, no, it's not okay to walk up to a 74-year-old man and toss him on the floor. He gets his head cracked, and he's in critical condition. I think he's in serious, stable condition. But what do you need to do that for? You were given orders to clear the plaza. Can you use what are you, the Borg, for crying out loud?
Speak a start. Do you know what that reference means?
No, not really. Kind of, a little bit.
There you go.
Only because you make me listen to Star Trek podcasts. But I mean, seriously, you can't use your brain and say, okay, this is a man who we can probably say doesn't need to be tossed over a cement piling. He could probably be asked to leave peacefully. You don't need to toss him.
So Chris Williams came up here. The whole emergency squad resigned, but they keep their jobs as regular police. So they're still in the force. Okay. The thing that cracks me up, we talk a lot about this a lot, is managing people and conflict resolution, right? If I'm going to talk to you about something and I come storming up to you, how are you going to feel? You're going to tense up a little bit.
Yeah, I take exception to that little hand motion because I think you're imitating me, because that's how I
wasn't, but
ready. I got my dukes up. I'm ready to go. Yeah, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
It's like you said. You want to come up to someone. You want to calmly de-escalate the situation. Tanks and throwing people to the ground in no way de-escalates the situation. It makes it worse.
Well, Crystal Williams is right. Those folks just resigning from their little task force. These folks still getting paid. And talking about getting paid, again, I'm going back to this ACLU. If you actually read their analysis in their report, and again, we're in Boston. We're using Boston as an example here. But, there are cops on the beat getting paid over $300,000 a year with overtime. $300,000 a year. That's more than the mayor of Boston makes. To do what exactly? To ride around in a tank, or to get ready to ride around in a tank? Because you only see tanks when people are in the street. I mean, what is this about?
I'll ride around in a tank for free. That sounds like fun.
Oh my goodness.
So listen, this is the last thing I want to say here.
Hold on, one
Or
other
not.
thing.
Go ahead.
One other
Not a
thing.
chance.
We also have to say again, monuments celebrating Confederates
Yep.
removed in cities in Virginia, Alabama, and some other states. People just ripping them down. Okay, we're not going to have a conversation about this. We're taking to the streets, ripping them down,
Right.
throwing them into the sea, throwing them into the lake, into the river.
They tripped and fell.
Yeah, they tripped and
Well,
fell. Oops, sorry.
Was it the Marines that decided to take down all Confederate flags?
Why are
they
Confederate
on there
flags
anyway?
up?
I
What
thought
are you talking about?
I thought you did that over 145 years ago, when the Civil War ended.
I gotta
Stop
tell you.
typing. I might be off on that.
I gotta tell you something. Okay, and I'm hearkening back.
Hearken.
I used to be a political talk show host. I have done hours of arguing with conservatives on the radio about this. I've had so many conversations. I do not fundamentally understand why there is any reason for there to be a Confederate flag in this country. Like that is the flag of traitors.
Yep.
That is the flag of losers. That is the flag of racists. Can I be any more plain? Let me
Tell us how you feel.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you exactly. You are a traitor and a loser and a racist if you're holding on to that flag. You lost. Okay, you lost. That flag, it represents a group of people who are trying to undermine this nation, and continue to do it. And so I don't know what are you trying to tell me with that, other than I'm a racist and a traitor to this country. It has nothing to do with the United States. So why the Marines would be flying that flag for what exactly?
The Civil War ended 155 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a little bit late taking down the flags, my friend.
Yeah, they should. They have no business. I don't understand, especially like, I mean, to a degree, I have a little tiny kernel of understanding from some Southern heritage. Like my grandfather was a traitor, so we hold on to this flag.
Oh, if you want to, on your porch.
Well,
but
no,
on a
I don't want to see it on your porch.
No, I'm just saying, like if my great
house.
grandfather has it, I don't like it. But Jesus Christ, if you're the U.S. military,
well,
take it down.
Yeah, I'm not even down with that. So, like, let's say, and I was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Either way, I don't like it.
So, like, I kind of get a little kernel of that. Like, oh, my great grandfather fought in the Confederacy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This old relic from those days. That's why it exists in our home. I don't want to see you flying it. But if you're up here, I've seen people here in Boston, Massachusetts flying a Confederate flag.
Yeah.
For what, stupid? Like, what are you
doing?
flying that for? Come on. What are you talking about? What does that mean? What are you trying to tell me? Like, you're just flying a racist flag. Shut it down. Done.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
All done.
Sorry. I guess that's my rant for the day. Oh, one last one. Sorry.
No way. You're not done yet?
The street, I could go on for days.
Yeah, you could.
The street in front of the White House is renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza. If you didn't see that, you could see it from space. Okay. This is a petty level that I aspire to, the mayor of Washington, D.C. I love it. Like Donald Trump and his staged appearance in front of the church in Washington, D.C., clearing a park, using tear gas against his own citizens, peacefully protesting so he could have his little photo op that Ivanka Trump came up with this whole idea, by the way. So the mayor of Washington, D.C. writes it as big as you possibly can in the street leading up to the White House, Black Lives Matter, renaming the plaza where the church was Black Lives Matter Plaza. And I think, is it Pennsylvania Avenue that they renamed? Is he now living at 1800?
You keep talking. You keep talking.
1800 Black Lives Matter Plaza, I think. That was a meme going around. I don't know if that's true or not, but I got to say, so big, so yellow, so beautiful. You can see it from space. That is, not only is it right, is it amazing, it is a level of petty that I, as a human being on this planet,
16th,
I
it's
aspire
16th
to.
Street, 16th Street in Washington, D.C.
1600, I'm getting the
16th
address
Street,
16th Street. Okay. Well,
close to the White House.
Let's go next. Like what's next? But it's frightening what's happening in DC. Actually, you're seeing paramilitary groups patrolling the areas and pushing back protesters there. That is pretty stunning, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And we don't even know, some of these troops are actually unmarked. So you got to be careful. If you're in DC, I know a lot of folks watching this broadcast in DC. Be careful, because there are folks, that picture, that iconic picture now of military members standing at the Lincoln Memorial, unmarked troops there. We don't even know whether or not those
Right.
were militia,
Right.
like just random dudes with guns, because that's a thing in this country, standing there defending the Lincoln Memorial. We've seen that made the rounds. We don't even know if those were actually part of the National Guard or whoever was called up. My goodness. So there is a lot of things happening in this country right now. You got to keep your eyes open and be paying attention, because my goodness, day by day, more and more happening.
Exactly. And, Marisol Barusha bringing this to our attention over the weekend in La Mesa, California, which is in San Diego. A young lady was hit with a beanbag from the riot squad, and it was actually stuck in her eye.
We actually saw that happen in Boston in the past too, where someone actually died from beanbags, rubber bullets, tear gas, all of this kind of stuff. Doing this against your own people because they are in the streets, exercising their First Amendment right, like the ability to protest, to use your voice, to speak out in the street. It's fundamental.
A grandmother. She was a grandmother.
Oh, my heart.
So this is what I'm going to say, if I may, dear.
Go on.
Yeah, I'm free now. Okay.
You are.
This is for Natasha, Maggie Medry, and Mariel Nova. The next time you go to to Jeff Riley's meeting about bringing a school back in the fall, and they're telling you they don't have money for social services in schools or translators for our children. Tell them you'll trade him a couple of tanks.
That's right.
I'll trade you 2 tanks for a few hundred translators.
This is what I fundamentally do not understand about how we go about these processes here. Here again in Massachusetts, across the country, these return to school workforce groups are being put together. Proud to say we fought for 5 seats, and we had to fight. We had to threaten, and yes, I did threaten. I said we will shut it down. We will shut down the city where the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Malden, Massachusetts, headquarters of Massachusetts Parents United, because we knew we were going to have to take action against these folks. We'll hop in cars. How many parents do you want to see? How many people do you want us to show up there for you to understand that we are going to be heard on this? 5 seats. But as we are sitting down there, we present our Bill of Rights, our terms as parents and families across the Commonwealth, parents and families across the nation, saying, listen, we understand you want to open the schools, you're feeling urgency around it, and you're this mindset that we have to work as fast as we can to shove our kids back into the same system that was broken before, the same. And we're not even, let's not even talk about curriculum and ineffective, schools and all of the underserving of our community. Let's talk about the fact that you can't keep the buildings clean and our kids can't pee. Like, we don't have functioning bathrooms in some of these places, but you are all in a lather to try to shove our kids back in these buildings. Here are our terms. And what do we get? What are we told? Well, Massachusetts Parents United, National Parents Union. It sounds like you don't even want schools to open. We do, but we want them to be safe. And the other pushback is, well, if we're going to do all of these things you want us to do, all this disinfection. Oh, you want us to use List N disinfectants from the environmental, the EPA? Oh my gosh, those are really expensive products. Yes, they are, because they work. And you must disinfect if you want our kids to be back in these public buildings. So you have tank money. Again, you have money for tanks. You do not have disinfection money. I don't get it. What we should be doing now is putting together a world-class plan. if you have any expectation that the schools are going to open, you need to show us what you're going to do to make it possible for schools to open. Then we will go to Governor Baker, who will go to President Trump and say, this is how much it's going to cost to keep our kids safe. Let's figure out the money. But first we have to have a plan that will make it possible, safe, and possible for our kids to enter these buildings. Don't talk to me about we don't have disinfection money when you got tank money. I don't get it. That's not going to work for me.
And don't come out with the recommendations already and post those on Facebook. They did that over the weekend.
Man,
don't waste our time on the committee if you've already made it. If you've already made your decision.
If you have already decided what you're going to do and what that's going to look like. By the way, some of these recommendations I saw.
How'd you feel about?
Already not happy with them, because what I want to know fundamentally is if I send my child to your public building that you are running, and someone in that public building, whether it's another student, whether it's an educator, whether it's a staff member, tests positive for COVID-19, suspects they have COVID-19, when am I being notified that my child has been exposed? Or am I just supposed to guess? Are we going back to the days like a couple months ago, the beginning of March? Again, this is not, something I'm cooking up in my mind. This is something that actually happened. We started to hear rumors in our school system that someone could possibly be exposed, but we're not entitled to know, because we need to protect their privacy, because their privacy overrides my ability to keep my child safe. Like, you got to figure this stuff out. So your recommendations, I got nothing for you until you're telling me specifically, when are you giving me the information I need to know to keep my child safe? And where are you coming up with the money you need to have adequate disinfection before my child is coming into your school? Like, this is basic stuff, so I don't know. I don't want to hear the whining. I don't want to hear the excuses. I'm not interested in any of that. As I said, don't accept it from my kids. Not going to accept it from grown-ass men, policymakers, superintendents, commissioners, chiefs of states, elected officials. We have expectations. This is what we're fighting for. It's really basic stuff. Really, really basic stuff.
And you know who else isn't going to accept it?
Yahaira Lopez.
Yahaira Lopez, our first guest. So why don't we get her on here?
My goodness, Yahaira.
Let's get her on there. Woo! It was the most time I've ever spent on camera in this show.
Excuse me, I'm feeling my feelings this morning.
Yes, you are. Feel those feelings. It's Monday.
Okay, Yahaira is joining us, our dear friend, the founder, the executive director of Autism Sprinter. She's got a lot to say. She's got a lot of feelings about what's happening, especially around budget cuts. I'm really interested to get her take on, not just as a mother of children with special needs, but as a constant fighter for equity in this system. I want to know how she is feeling. Girl, we need you. We need your energy this morning. I am not alone here in being fired up. Am I?
Nope. We stand in solidarity on this topic.
Because let me tell you something. If they don't give us what we want, we're going to bird dog them.
That's right. We're going to shut it down.
We'll shut it down and we'll bird dog them.
I'm telling you, like, I do not understand. I do not understand these people with their tank money, but they don't have money for our children and making excuses. Well, we're going to do the best we can. Well, the best you can better be top notch.
Yep.
Be world class, the best we can. So, Yahaira, like, you are fighting this fight on the local level. You're seeing this firsthand. You're in Randolph, Massachusetts. Yeah. You're on the CPAC there. You're doing this work every single day. Tell me how you're doing. Like, this is a fight on all fronts in this moment. How is your heart today?
Every day, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. I feel like I have these highs, I have these lows. 1 minute, I'm like explosive. Then I'm like, oh no, girl, I need you to calm down. It's the feelings are all over the place. And as you know, Randolph has been, which I find kind of strange, that for a smaller district, we are being like the leading agents in all these budget cuts that are happening throughout the Commonwealth. But yet, for so long, parents like myself have been asking and demanding equity, right? So we're making all these drastic cuts. And again, parents are finding out through Facebook. And I think that that's such a smack in the face for parents like myself who are simply trying to have a seat at the table and help improve our school systems. And yet we're finding out about all these budget cuts because teachers or people that work in a district are taking it to social media. I mean,
I got to tell you, Randolph to me is a beautiful example of so many other communities across this nation. And let me tell you why I think so. Randolph, right next to Boston. Yep. Randolph, full of white people, Black and brown folks are moving out of Boston and into Randolph. They don't know what to do. Randolph is shook. They are not used to having equity conversations. They are comfortable with underserving Black and brown children and children with special needs, low-income folks, and they don't know what to do in this situation. So what you're saying about being a test case, it's very interesting where it's almost as if Randolph is trying to be that little example. Well, you know, we're going to see what Randolph does. Randolph is going to cut art and music and social emotional supports and special ed staff and educators and all of these other folks. Let's see if the folks in Randolph freak out, because we're going to try this all over the state. Do you feel like that's the case? And talk about how you as a parent were notified, just a parent level. I mean, you're actually the vice president of your PAC there. I mean, it's incredible.
So again, I found that on Facebook. Literally all the incidents from the furlough of the paraprofessionals, who we know that in smaller school districts like Randolph, those paras are in the special educational classroom. So they're in the sub-separates, they're in the social emotional learning settings. So in my head, I'm like, wait, what is going on here? And then now the second one was that we cut gym, music, and art, found that out through Facebook. And like you said, I am the vice president of CPAC. I can't even tell you how many emails I have on my phone that we've been emailing since literally school has closed. Hey, like, what's going on? Are you guys going to have an open forum to communicate with parents, to have this conversation publicly, right? And, you know, in smaller towns like this, they use the local community channels, which I'm not against. I think it's pretty, I think those old school things I still love. But we are in 2020, where most parents and everyone's home and they're accessing their social media more than they've ever accessed it before. So I don't even understand how our school committee meetings are still not even live streamed on Facebook, which to me kind of brings the conversation is it intentional that you don't want to have public conversations with the public so the public can see, so that you guys are making all these decisions behind closed doors, and we got to wait for somebody to be brave and bold and share it on Facebook?
Haida, I got to tell you, you're talking about Randolph, Massachusetts, and this town in Massachusetts. Let's kick it to LA. Okay, we're in Los Angeles. You know, we were talking with some of our groups there, our affiliates of the National Parents Union. They had it with their massive school board, which it actually is live streaming. Parents were not allowed to comment unless they physically showed up in downtown Los Angeles to make their voices heard in person. They weren't going to be heard at all. You know, in communities around here, they're limiting public comment to 20 minutes. Folks are making huge decisions that do not need to be made in these critical moments under the cover of darkness, using the excuse that, well, the pandemic, we're doing the best we can. The best you can is not good enough. You are not reaching the people who need to be a part of these conversations. You're not engaging them. We have been yelling and screaming for years that communications with parents and families and community overall is broken. You are learning that lesson. Yes, you are. Yet you are continuing to push forward with massive policy changes that are going to impact our children, while organizations like yours and mine are doing rapid response work on the ground, trying to just keep folks fed, trying to make sure they have the information. It's a mess. This is a mess.
And the issue with that is that at the end of the day, there's still policies and procedures that are in place. And this is what I always tell parents. As long as I've been in this town and started getting involved with the school committee and attending all these meetings and trying to get informed, there's still things that should happen. So the budget conversation is technically supposed to, there should be a forum that's had with all the parents kind of council. So they should be those budget conversations, there should be like a forum with CPAC, the school side councils. None of that has been happening. And I get it. I totally get it. We're in a pandemic and we're trying to figure things out. But at the same time, parents have access now, right? So parents, more than they've ever had before, are homebound. They're taking care of their babies. And this is actually the most perfect opportunity to engage parents civically, because there's a lot of expertise in the village and parents are experts too. Just because we didn't, some of us may not have the MBs and all that behind our last name does not make us that we're not speech pathologists, that we're not ABA providers, that we're naturally that. We gave birth to these children. So we are automatically born with the expertise. And so I think that my biggest struggle is, we keep having all these conversations in the dark and we continue to traumatize parents more deeper. And then you want parents to be your partners. I think parents have always wanted to be your partners, but how can we be your partners with one? They always cherry pick what parents they want at the table. The parents who are complacent.
Now, say more about that, Yahida, because
Right.
It is, we see this in Boston, we see it across the Commonwealth, across the country. It's only particular parents that fit in the box, that bleat out the talking points they want to hear, that check the box for them so they can say they've engaged. Usually not representative of the community, demographically, geographically, whatever it is. That is a huge problem. And so the excuses that we hear all the time, well, we checked with parents. What parents did you check with? What parents are you talking to right now? Yeah. This is classic what you see, because they do not want to hear from parents that have the lived experience, that's problems, that are speaking truth to power, that have no other agenda other than fixing the system for our children, because we went through it ourselves, for crying out loud.
And that's kind of like my biggest issue is that right now, our school district, in the last school committee meeting that I've seen, it looks like they're always talk about scattered schedules and that kids, before entering the building, they're going to have the thermometer, all this stuff, which is great. We've heard this through the CDC guidelines. But at the same time, you guys are having these conversations and you are expecting parents to attend now your Zoom school committee meetings that are happening at 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, right? After parents have been in a house with their kids all day long already, trying to just do the schoolwork and trying to figure Google Classroom out and all this nonsense, right? To then dedicate another 2 to 3 hours to listening to what appears, well, this is what we're going to do, and we don't care what you guys say. That's not okay.
And this goes back to, again, the expectation of parents and not understanding the lived experience. I went to battle with Elizabeth Warren on this, because the idea was like, parents are supposed to work their jobs, be parents, help out with their kids at home, make sure they're doing homework. Like, I'm a single mom. I got 3 little boys. One of them has special needs. Like, I have a more than full-time job. I got a lot on my plate. But then the expectation is that we do even more, and we do the jobs of the people who are getting paid a lot of money to run schools, to be policy experts, everything else. It is like the expectation that we put on parents is ridiculous, on top of the fact that, like, if you are working that full-time job, you cannot show up for a 3 o'clock classroom parent teacher conference and then be ready for a 7 o'clock meeting. When are you doing that reading time with your kids if you also want me to show up at a meeting and tell you how to do your job? Because if I don't hold you constantly accountable, I can't trust that you're gonna get it done. It's like a no-win situation. And then folks wonder why parents get all fired up when you have to lay down the law and say enough is enough. Like, if you can't do it, we need to find other people who are capable of doing it, and we're not going to be used in this situation. I want to get to that piece too, because, this is the time of year. It is budget season, and we got a lot of problems. And I want to talk to you about how we seem to have tank money, but we don't have book money. That's probably what we're going to crystallize this down to. But it's funny, around budget season, all of a sudden, we want parents marching in the streets. We want parents as allies, fight for us, all this stuff. Talk to us about this. Like you've been on this rodeo for a little while now. You know how this stuff goes now.
I'm in my feelings about that. And I'm very, really deeply bothered by my district's teachers union. And again, anyone who knows me, I've always been very diplomatic. No beef with no unions. That's not my style. But what I will say, as a parent of 2 Black and brown children, the only time I've ever seen my teachers union here in a community of over 40% people of color, the only time I've ever seen them mobilize is during budget season. So I'm like, wait, I can't find a website. I can't find a Facebook, any social media platform, so that I can learn how you're advocating for these Black and brown children in your school district. I don't know your platform. So now that we're in a global pandemic and cuts are getting really real, because it's not just gym, music and art, they're cutting guidance counselors. Mind you, that's a whole other conversation. And you are asking parents to sit in solidarity with you to help support the funding of our schools. But the way, like I've said it, and I've said it publicly in my town, in the Facebook groups, is how can I sit in solidarity with you when I don't even know your platform? And I want people to stop using the vagueness in the conversation when we're talking about equity, right? Because we use all these words like diversity and, but let's talk a real conversation, right? So I'm gonna need my teachers union to say, I'm here because I want to make sure that my Black and brown students of my district can actually read at grade level. I'm here because I need my Black and brown students to do math at grade level, right? I don't hear none of that. So to me, I'm very bothered at the fact that we're talking about scattered schedules where kids are not going to be in the building, possibly together at the same time. Nobody knows. But then you are doing a whole rally to seek funding to keep these positions. But we're still not even talking about how many kids are really remote learning. Where's your stance on that? Where is the data? And we know data can get manipulated. Where's the data of how many kids are truly learning through remote learning? So to me, it's hard for me as a parent to support something that I'm still sitting here, like I'm still waiting for you to talk about the Black and brown issues of the students in your community.
Now, Haida, I think this is a critical moment, and that's why you are positioned so beautifully. Like, you are part of a lot of different organizations, a lot of different conversations. I think your voice is going to be critically important, especially you're a brand new board member of Citizens for Public Schools, conversations happening there. And I think that what I am hopeful is that if we're all working on, having better conversations, that these conversations are not just going to be about keeping positions, keeping jobs, saying, yes, that's important. But once we keep these jobs, what are these jobs doing for our kids? And can we all agree that the people in these jobs should be completely focused on getting our kids, not just, achieving proficiency, but excellence? And do the people in these jobs fundamentally believe that our kids are capable of that? And that is, to me, the toughest conversations we got to have with them. Because I get tagged all the time as beating up the unions. I don't hate unions. I started a union, for crying out loud. I believe in the power of unions, but I also think that this is a moment for unions to reflect about what their priorities are. What is When girl, I'm like you. When I want to know about somebody's core, I look about what they spend their money on, what their mission statement is. Don't talk at me. Don't put up stuff on social media. Don't put out a statement. Don't put out an email. Show me something.
Yeah.
When I look at these things, the reason why I felt it was really important in Massachusetts to start a union of parents to do this nationally, because when I know, having been a longtime union staffer, their priority is their members. And if your members are majority white and your members are not reflective of the community, like I don't hate you for fighting for your members, but please understand that my members are parents whose priority are number one, fighting for their children. And that's an okay place to be. We should be able to come together, because I will fight for educators to have every single resource they need, every position they need. I want them to have good jobs. I don't want them to just, make a living wage. I want them to make a comfortable wage, because if you're going to be with my baby all day, I want you in a good mood, feeling secure, believing in my child, not worrying about paying the electric bill. I'm not trying to give you that life, but meet me somewhere. Meet me halfway and show me that if I fight for you, you're going to understand what I need you to do for my babies. And that's where the rub comes into this. And so I so hear what you're saying on this, because, it's not just about money. It's about how we're spending this money and who we're investing in. And are we investing in people who even believe? And this is the core question I got to throw to you. What is really striking is this new mindset I'm seeing emerging from some of the teachers unions, from some different advocacy groups, about this deficit mindset when it comes to not just our special needs children, but Black and brown children who have been historically underserved, that our children, because they have been given this situation, are broken. Our babies are broken. They've lost so much school. They're never going to catch up. They're traumatized. They're broken.
Yeah.
Our children are not broken. They've gone through a really difficult challenge. That doesn't mean we're not going to get them to grade level reading. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be proficient. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be excellent. It means that we've got to figure out how to get them there. We got to do different work. We got to do better work, harder work.
Mm-hmm.
We're all not united, and we don't have the mindset that, maybe our children learned some different things while they were home with mommy and abuelita. Maybe they learned some different things when they were working in the yard with grandpa, but they were still learning, and they're not broken, and they're not so traumatized that we have to dismiss them. I mean, do you worry about that? Because as a mom, like, I worry about sending my kids back into a system that fundamentally believes that because of COVID-19, like, there's not a lot we can do for these guys.
And I think that that whole thing about kids are broken, and no, the system has been broken literally since it became in existence, since we put so many policies and procedures and politics into it. It's been broken for a very, very long time. And COVID has exposed that we are in 2020 still doing things that we did 20 years ago. If we really want, because my head, I kind of think differently, right? So if we really want to reimagine schools, then we need to start thinking out of the box. So if kids really are artists and they really are, musicians, how do we teach them that skill to expand it longer so that they are the next children in the future leaders who are going to lead the orchestra, or the next kids who are going to be the next Picassos? Like, how do we build on those skills, like using each grade level to making sure that their skills get so polished that they can have their own platform as they get older? Like, let's teach our kids to really think, and let's think about what school looks like. Because in my head, I've always imagined maybe elementary school being where the kids learn the basic fundamentals, which is the reading, the writing, and the math. And then from middle school moving forward, seeing if the kid is an artist or he likes computer, how do we build those skills that by the time they graduate from high school, their project is they created a whole entire app or multiple apps that are actually useful for their own community. or doing that? Or are we going to continue to sit them in classroom and worry about them taking MCAS and doing all of this just for them to get into college and still be doing the same thing? Like, I just don't even understand education at this point, to be very honest with you.
Speaking, like, you are the voice of parents everywhere. We did a poll with the Bar Foundation over the last few years, just talking about, like, polling students, parents, teachers, principals. And it was really interesting the way the data came out, because parents and students were on the same page. Teachers and principals were on the same page. Two very different pages. Parents and students wanting school to career pathways.
Yeah.
Why am I learning these things so that I can prepare myself for the career? What is that pathway? How do I get there? How do I get into these STEM careers? How do I get into a medical career? How do I get into high tech? All of these things. Why am I learning these things? And how is the curriculum we are accessing in school going to get me, not just to graduation day where they hand you a piece of paper? That piece of paper doesn't guarantee you anything. Lord knows in Boston it doesn't. You know, it doesn't guarantee you that you're prepared for a career. You know, we put a black and brown tax on families because we don't, even that piece of paper does not mean you are even ready for a college level freshman course. And so students and parents saying, yes, like, that's what we envision. We want updated curriculum that prepares us for careers, for life, that gives us, like, financial literacy, like those kinds of skills. But then you take a look at the results from teachers and from principals, it's very different. Saying, no, that's not, that's not what we're looking for. What we're doing is great. It's preparing them for graduation day. And we have to have a very real conversation about, what are we doing in this system? And we have folks that unfortunately benefit from this status quo because it works well for them. We have created a system that benefits adults. What adults want, adults get in this education system, more of an employment system. So if we're trying to have the expectation that our kids are going to emerge from this employment system with an education, we're on the wrong page. So we need to have, like, a foundational conversation about, like, what is our expectation of a graduate? Like, folks in Canada have done this, where they're evaluating, like, what is the picture of a successful graduate? What do we want our kids to be prepared to do when they've graduated from this system? Instead, we are hell-bent on protecting the system and every single job, and even down to the buildings. We have buildings in Boston that are falling down. The bathrooms don't work. The roofs are caving in, but we got to hold on to that building, because if we don't hold on to that building, somebody might get reassigned to another building, and they might have feelings like, what are we doing here? It's like, it's crazy, girl.
A hot mess. And, I've sat back and looked and seen how, my son on the spectrum, he's in a happy space. He doesn't, he's here. And, like he said, in school, I get yelled at all the time, and they send me to the office. So he is in his happiest space. My other son, he definitely needs to be in a space to kind of channel all his energy from the ADHD and stuff like that. So, but two different kids, and they love learning stuff by hand. They like building stuff. So how do I expand that in a way where I can make sure, he likes making beats? How do I, buy apps or anything like that to make sure that he builds on that skill because he likes music, and my other son loves, searching through apps. How can I build his expertise on being the next app developer, But we typically, in Black and Brown communities, we limit the access for our kids, right? And then, we're asking, we don't know why our kids are not thriving. They're not thriving because they're not giving the skills. Like, if you go to a public school in Newton Wellesley, in Newton, they have social, emotional, guidance counselor per grade level. So each grade level has a guidance counselor, where then you come to the inner city or a predominantly Black and Brown community, there's one guidance counselor for our whole entire school.
Like 400, 500 kids.
Yes. And then now we're talking about, we're also cutting their positions, but I'm confused because if you have a child who's on an IEP, which again is a educational contract, right? It's a law, it's a federal law, right? You're cutting services that they're going to get. And then where are we heading when children don't even have someone that they can connect with in school and say, hey, either this work is too hard for me, or, you know, somebody's over here bullying me, or, you know, I have this going on at home, you know. So we're cutting those positions, right? And then where does that leave families? And then again, nobody's having these conversations with parents. Yes, we are aware that if the funding comes, we're going to get it, whatever. But the fact remains is we're leaving parents out of the conversation as if we don't have a level of expertise to bring to the table.
It's, I really struggle to understand what the thinking is around this stuff. You know, even just taking a look at the summer guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education here in Massachusetts, you know, talking about, you know, 30% capacity, talking about like, we're going to have social distancing guidelines, we're going to have remote learning guidelines, all of this kind of stuff, all done in concert, like just with the expectation that we are going to do this to you, parents and families. You are going to accept it. We don't need your input. Just stay tuned. We'll let you know what we're going to do to you. I mean, beyond just being disrespectful. And again, you know, there's never been any, you know, restorative justice with historically underserved communities, with parents, with people who've been disrespected. But you are continuing to wound the relationship that you say so often you want to fix by conducting yourselves in this kind of behavior. You know, you're seeing it there in Randolph, where you're reading about it in the little town paper or on Facebook when major cuts to education that are going to directly impact your kids are coming down. You know, we're seeing it, you know, on the state level where guidance is being issued. And apparently, according to the guidance, you don't even need to tell parents. Your kids have been exposed to somebody with COVID-19. Hope you're in the right caregiver, parents and family group on Facebook, because you might hear a whisper of it there. Other than that, well, you know, watch your kid. You know, we're not going to tell you, like we tell our families more when they're picking up lice and strep throat than a deadly virus like COVID-19. But like, you hide up, you know, we got to keep fighting. And so what's your plan to keep your spirit up and keep going? It's a Monday, girl.
Oh, listen. So a few parents and I, again, we found out of the budget cuts again through social media. So we decided that on Thursday, June 11th, we're going to do a speak out because the teachers union is having a rally. And so again, and mind you, I'm part of CPAC, and they haven't reached out to me as a CPAC representative to say, hey, Ms. Lopez, you know, can you and Ms. Ciamos join us in this conversation, and can you guys speak, you know? But they got upset because I kind of asked them a question. Where's your platform? I want to know what your platform and how I can help you, because at the end of the day, I'm going to always support educators, hands down. But I need to also know, what is it that you're looking to do past COVID-19? What is your vision in public education, and especially serving in a Black and brown community? And so, you know, they're having a rally. We decided, hey, we feel kind of left out of that conversation because, again, you know, they go to the parents who are complacent, the parents who are like, oh, yay, you know, let's support Randolph students, you know, let's, you know, it's all about the kids. But it really isn't about the kids, at least that I'm observing, because if it was about the kids, where has your advocacy and your platform been prior to all of this? So again, not a problem with the unions. I got beef with my local teachers union. I got a problem with you guys because I don't see any transparency. I don't know what you guys are bargaining for, you know, where you can jump to the Boston Teachers Union and others who you can go visit their website. They'll tell you their platform, you know, it lists, you know, the presidents and the people. I love that. beautiful. And their platform is very clear. And I'm still trying to figure out, okay, so what are we doing in my town, again, in a community of predominantly Black and brown kids, and how many of the teachers unions actually represent our students? How many of them are Black and brown and can actually have a connection and advocate based on lived experience and how to really bring equity into the space? So, you know, we're doing our own thing Thursday, June 11th at 6 p.m. We're going to meet at the Randolph Public Schools Administrative Office, which is where our superintendent's office is and her staff. And we're going to walk from the administrative office all the way to town hall. I see in the town, you know, our town council is a department who, you know, says how much money that they're going to give us and what they're going to approve, what they're not going to approve. So we're kind of still asking questions about, hey, what's up and where do we go from here? And is our school district and town council working as a cohesive, you know, a cohesive partnership, and then also working with the federal government to say, hey, like we're going through a crisis here in the public school system here in my community, predominantly Black and brown students. You know, we need help around these parts. So now we need the federal government to get involved in this part of this conversation. So it is also going to give the parents opportunities to talk and kind of share their experiences, you know, whether they're positive, negative, or whatever, because I, you know, as a parent first, I love to be able to create spaces for parents to talk real, not kind of like, oh, I'm going to reach out to this person because this person is going to say all the right things. And then, no, like all of us are experts. We all have something to bring to the table. So we're kind of going to do our own little speak out in hopes that it's parent led and it's for parents, and, you know, giving them the opportunity to say, hey, what about our babies? Not about your jobs, is because at the end of the day, we support you and we need those positions. That's without a doubt. We're not taking that away from them. But what we do want to know, when is the conversation going to start with our babies and end with our babies? They should always be the focal system. And how are you engaging me as a parent to be part of the conversation versus reaching out to me and saying, hey, let's have a rally to support our jobs. But again, and I'm gonna keep saying it because I'm really disappointed in my local teachers union. And I think they know that because I pinned the post and everything on a Facebook group and say, where's your platform? I haven't even seen you guys release a message on standing in solidarity about police brutality in a Black and brown community. Where's your stance on that? So it's just kind of like my feelings are raw in a sense of we shouldn't have to keep going through this in Black and brown communities. It's hurtful, it's traumatizing, and sometimes when we're conveying our message, it's not going to be conveyed the way that you want us to be diplomatic and be, you know, we're partners and we're going to stand together. You know, if we're going to stand together, then what does that really mean? Because I don't know what that means these days when I'm just learning through everything through Facebook. Like, that's just disrespectful.
And we're not here for fair weather friends, you know, and we're not here, you know, just because you want us to say what you want us to say because it benefits you. Like, let's be in community and conversation with each other, and let's have a respectful conversation, and then we can move forward. But it's gotta be, we have to re-examine, you know, you're doing important work, girl. We see you. Let us know how we can help. Keep going. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Love you. Yahida Lopez, one of our counselors on the National Parents Union and the governing body, the National Parents Council, doing the work in the community, because that's how this thing happens. We have beautiful trouble all over this country, folks doing the work, speaking truth to power, trying to reimagine these conversations and straightening things out. So we love Yahida and her energy.
That's right. Well, great show.
Great show. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
That's right. And if you have any tips, feedback, ideas for guests or topics, send that to info@npunion.org. That's info@npunion.org. Please tune in for the show tomorrow. It's going to be another fiery one.
That's right.
Gwen Samuel is on there from the Connecticut's Parents Union. Can't
Excited
wait.
to welcome her back.
That's right. I'll see you then.
Bye now.